Today, I'm going to be talking about the alchemy of ascension as I understand it through my own integrations for that I've experienced through my own spiritual journey and the downloads that I've received and the information that I've been able to understand. So I hope that what I have to offer you serves you, but at the same time, I also encourage you to release and put down anything that doesn't resonate with you at this time. One of the really great things that I've learned about all of our journeys is how beautiful they are, even though they're also very different. One of the challenges that I had to understand was even just cognizing what is ascension and going from that place where, and thank you, Suzanne, for the historical background, kind of makes sense now. I had to understand that it's not a linear progression, and I had to understand that there's no tiers of higher and lower. I had to understand why it wasn't a tier, why it wasn't higher and lower, why it was more of an expansion, if you can think of it in the way that our human brains can understand it. It's an expansion of energy going outwards, almost as if you're seeing a circle becoming larger in that field of love. And one of the things that's critical to understanding the alchemy of ascension, when you understand that it's not an up and down thing, but it's an outward thing, is that there is a process that happens in our bodies because we did come forward to have a physical experience. So that's incorporated in our journeys and in our understandings of self and in our understandings of love. So we want to be able to, at some point, understand how our bodies serve that part of the journey, while also understanding that we're much more than just our bodies, much more than just our pasts, much more than just our failures, much more than our victories, and much more than we can really even fully comprehend in our human brains. And that's kind of what I want to share with you a little bit about today, because it has served my ability to kind of move forward in a brave way into this unknown world, and then to allow myself to be seen and allow myself to be heard by myself first, and then hopefully to share it with others. So one of the things that I kind of had to do is kind of go back to the beginning and understand this. For at least half of my adult life, I was pretty much sleepwalking through life, very much centered in the egoic self, very much centered in the belief systems that were assimilated by me in childhood. Without judgment, I say this because that's part of the journey. We agreed to come into this human experience and forget all of who we were, how powerful we really are. And of course, we would have to do that, because if we didn't forget that, if we didn't have the veil of forgetfulness, well, we would come down here and be presented with the challenge, and it would be nothing, and there would be no learning. But we agreed to have this brave journey of forgetting completely who we really are, where we come from, all of the people that we love, that we have connections with, and start over with a clean slate. And I thought about it one time. What if someone came to me today and said, hey, I'd like you to go to this little known island. There's a lot going on there, but I'm going to have to ask you to take a pill before you get on the plane. And when you take that pill, you're going to forget everything about yourself, everything about your life here. You're going to forget all of the people that you've met, that you appreciated, that you loved. And when you land, you're going to not know the language. You're not going to know the environment. So everything that you learn from the moment you step off that plane is going to be brand new. And you're not going to be in control, by the way, of what you learn, because we're going to drop you into an environment, a family or a caregiver system, and they're going to teach you all of their limiting and false beliefs. I'm done. After that, you're going to do that for a couple of decades. You're the highs, the lows, and you're going to be caught up in this egoic kind of centralized life. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have to overcome everything you learned, and you're going to do all of this on purpose. But in the meantime, you're going to feel the rapturous emotions that are felt in only that environment, the highs, the lows, and the in-betweens, the victory, the triumphs of victories, and the agonies of defeat. And you're going to feel anger, and you're going to feel sublime joy. You're going to feel disappointment and incredible clarity. You're going to feel all of these things, and you're not going to be there for very long. but would you like to go? And here's the thing, and this is where I really had to understand where we are. I said yes. And so did everybody on this planet. People in Asia, people in South America, people in Africa, the Aboriginal tribes that are still living their authentic lives. Every single one of us said, yeah, let's do that. We'll all just forget each other. And by the way, a lot of us are friends. We don't remember that, right? So we have to kind of like retool our relationships when we get here, and then kind of go through that, integration process where it's like, oh yeah, I like you, but I just am really not sure why, but yeah, let's just do something together. So this has been the blind journey for all of us. So when we kind of start to stumble, thank God for our teachers and guides, universal support, our higher selves, we stumble into information that's going to start the path of our awakening into our own ascension. Again, the expansion of the love within us. And so I had to understand that when we were born, this energy, we are, of course, the creations of all that is. And this energy that created us is also shared with us so that we could come down here and be these sacred divine vessels of exploration and adventure that we all agree to with each other and with ourselves. And that at the moment that all that is shared its creational power with us to be our fuel for this life, it's the energy that we go to work with. It's the energy that we take a walk with. We cook our dinner with this energy. We have conversations. We do fun things. We go to plays. Everything we do harnesses this energy, which means, of course, and the energy, by the way, that we refer to it as is unconditional love. And it is the most powerful harmonic frequency in all of the known universes, shared with us unconditionally, meaning we were not judged before it was shared with us. It was said, here, Susan, here's this unconditional energy. Go be born and go through your own unique life. Go experience it because you're a part of me. And through you, I'm going to learn more about myself too. And you said, absolutely, let's do this. We're going to do this together. I'm going to give you this energy and you're going to go off into the world and do whatever it is you want because you're worthy of being trusted. Which means that in order to be born, we've already been deemed worthy. But of course, the veil of forgetfulness, we have to forget all of that, forget where we come from and who we really are. And what we do through the selection of the families and caregivers that had our charge, we learn their cultural beliefs, we learn their religious beliefs, we learn their political beliefs, and how they feel about every single thing on the planet. And of course, we're too young to have formulated our own belief system. So we love them. They're in charge of our basic needs, food, shelter, clothing. So yeah, I'm in. I'll believe what you believe. And that's the platform that we then later on have to overcome. And it's not a perfect journey. It has knee scrapes. It has elbow scrapes. And part of that journey is eventually coming to understand that those things are okay too, because those are a part of us and a part of our journey. And then to bring love to that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So what happens then is we're born with this unconditional energy of love. That's why babies smell so good. That's why we love holding them. We don't mind watching them. We want to touch them because their energy is so perfect. And then as children get older and they start assimilating the beliefs of their caregivers and families, what happens? They start to assimilate fear-based ideas, egoic-based belief systems, limiting beliefs about themselves, each other, and the world. And every time the brain cognized a new belief that was fear-based or limited, it was like putting on a coat that resonated the energy of fear. So now you have this beautiful, perfect soul with this perfect energy who is one by one putting on these coats of fear. So now the beautiful little soul is not only radiating unconditional love, but also now has mixed in the energies of fear. So now you have all these energies, and then the vibration keeps changing as the person grows older, assimilates new thoughts and beliefs, and then gets to a point where one day they start to awaken. They start to get a niggle about who they really are and what they're doing here and what their function is. And then one by one, they have to start taking off those coats. Remember, because ascension is not a higher or lower tier. It's an expansion of energy that goes outward from the self. So as you take off the coats one by one, as you put them on and step through life, putting on these coats of fear, you have to turn now and start taking off the coats one by one and unlearn every single thing you learned when you were born, which academically sounds doable. Certainly it sounded doable before we were born. We thought that was a really great idea. We just didn't understand. I mean, we did understand, but here we have to understand that part of taking off the coats of fear is also putting into actions those new beliefs that are more resonant with our original source energy, which is love. So as we take off the coats of fear, what happens is the original source energy of love now has more space to expand, to project itself from you out into the world. You are ascending, not ascending, you are ascending more into love, not becoming more love because you were already born unconditional love. You are releasing the negative energies that separated you and the world from being able to perceive more of it because of all the other energies that were mixed in. Sounds simple. So I wanted to explain a little bit about what happens in the mind-body complex from the alchemy perspective as we're moving on this ascension journey. A new thought hits the brain, and the brain begins to fire new neurons. It's an amazing thing. When the neurons are lit up for the first time, neuronal pathways, brand new, start to fire and light up pathways in your brain. When that happens, the atoms and cells and molecules of your body immediately respond. This is part of the alchemy of your body, to the energy of that new thought. If the energy is fear-based, then the alchemy in your body, that means the translation of that energy in chemical form that's embedding itself in the neurons of your flesh is going to be negative. So we all know why stress and anxiety is not good for our bodies. We know that. This is something that's already been accomplished. But understanding why and what happens in your body, for me, has been key to understanding and to be able to make choice points, decisions from experiences and relationships on the intention, the energy of my intentions. Am I taking a cloak off or am I putting another cloak on? And it really comes down to that. So your body is arranged to mechanize around your energy because you have free will and you have the ability to decide at any moment how you want to utilize that energy that is shared with you to experience your life. And there's no judgment on how you do that. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just how you want to experience yourself and love in this world. So I learned that taking off the cloak by arranging a new belief or an opposing belief to a fear-based belief felt really good because I could feel the reaction in my body when I would form an unconditional belief, but then actually placing that belief in action, because actions were physical, are thoughts in motion, right? So we not only have to cognize the new belief, we have to put the body in motion to support it. Putting the body in motion is how we move time from a quantum perspective. Putting the body in motion is how we shift into other realities. So I had to then start look at what are the greatest fears? And a lot of them have been inside of us. I know for me, this is true. So long, since childhood, some of them I didn't even know were there. But I realized and began to understand that the reason why I can know that they're there is when I feel an emotion. If I feel a negative emotion, annoyance, despair, stress, anxiety, anger, disappointment, it's a guidepost. It's not an indication of my worthiness. It's not an indication of my integrity. It is serving the function that it was originally designed to be. If you're feeling joy, satisfaction, contentment, love, kindness, compassion, they are also guideposts on where I am in any given moment. So then I understood that my emotions are a tool and that they serve me, and that I can't only value the positive emotions. I have to value the negative ones as well, because they're a part of me and part of what I've integrated. And that bringing love to those portions of me that people call the shadow work is where I can bring more love into self. And that the more successful that I am doing that, the more I'm able to resonate love out into the world. And that's why I'm here. That's why everybody's here, to be beacons of light. Now, we're already beacons of light, but the job is to turn up the volume on those light dials. And that's each of our individual journeys. So we understand now that the mind and body reacts to our emotions, and our emotions are all good, even the negative ones, because they're our compass. I know now that if I'm feeling a negative emotion, it's an indication from me that the way that I'm looking at something or someone is an error, that I'm not looking at that situation or that person through the eyes of love. And that's why the emotions that I'm feeling are not loving. I then had to learn and understand that when that happens, that the abdication of the empowerment of that emotion by blaming someone else for what's happening inside of me is an abdication of my authority. That took me a while. I'm going to be very honest, because the three main beliefs that are very prevalent for most of us, at least in the Western culture, is beliefs about worthiness, beliefs about safety, and beliefs about people pleasing. And it's now, of course, there are a lot of core beliefs, but many of the thought systems come from these three, even though there's more. The majority of them are housed here in those three belief structures. Of course, I was no different. So, and I have a very multicultural background. So I didn't just learn one or two cultural limiting beliefs. No, I clearly wanted to give myself the master class. And I came down with about 7 different cultures that were all handed down. So think about the generational traumas, and the information that's coded into each of our DNAs. Those of us who are Irish, those of us who are German, those of us who are Jewish, and so on and so forth. All of those memories are actually contained in our cellular structure. So when we came down to, experience certain backgrounds, this is our platform. This is our platform. And when I understood that, I thought, what was I thinking? Like, I could have picked two cultures, but that's a different thing. And I'm not going to complain because this is what I wanted. Anyway, so people pleasing then became something I felt like I needed to work on, because I realized that it was something that was being handed down generationally. And if you understand anything about other cultures, you understand that's handed down in very unique ways. And so I wanted to challenge myself on people pleasing. And I wanted to challenge myself on my victim mentality. I wanted to challenge myself on my ideas about my world and the people in it. I wanted to challenge myself about ideas like racism. I wanted to challenge my ideas about gender biases. I wanted to challenge myself on all of the things that I had been taught when I was younger. About a freshman in high school, my dad, who loved me very much, he was frightened for me, and he wanted to prepare me for the world. And he said, most people in the world, most white people in the world have to only work this hard to find some sort of measure of success. But you have a double handicap, because you're a person of color and you're a woman. So you're going to have to work 4 times as hard to get half as far. Not true, but it was from his perspective, and it was from his journey. So in his fear for the journey that I was going to have, he taught me a limiting belief. Now, he taught me really great things too, but you can begin to see how fears are handed down generationally. So I had to reorient my view on the people around me and my life and what I was going to choose to believe once I realized I had choice. I could choose to believe what I was taught, or I could choose a new belief. I could choose to believe that everyone in the world only wants to be kind to me and each other. Now, when I say that, most people laugh and they think you're ridiculous because you obviously don't watch the news. And I don't watch the news. I don't watch the news because it would be very difficult for me to focus my attention on somebody that's being unkind to someone and ground in the belief that there's kindness in the world. So I started to remove competition for my focus so that I could focus on what people think are ridiculous beliefs. I grew up in a family structure. My mother was one of 5 sisters, and they all came from South Korea. And every one of my sisters married a different kind of man. I had her older sister stayed in Korea. They never had children. She married a Korean man. The next sister down married an Irishman, and they ultimately moved to Florida. My other aunt married a very Black man from Mississippi, and they settled in New Jersey. And my other aunt married a Korean man, and they had 5 children. And then my mother married my father, who was an immigrant, whose background is German, French, Native American Indian, and African American. And then she settled and had children in New Jersey. And so when all the sisters came together, of course, they all brought their children. So growing up, I remember my older cousins laughing and saying that we looked like the United Nations, and I didn't know what the United Nations was. So at that time, I went to my mother, and Asian women kind of gaggle together. They separate from the husbands because they want to talk their own language. Husbands don't really understand it. So I remember going up to my mom, and I kind of was pulling on her shirt, and she says, "What is it?" And all the Korean women kind of turn around and look at me like, "You're interrupting our feasting," right? And I said, "How come we don't look like each other? How come that is?" And she said something to me that now I can come back to, because she said it probably at a subconscious level. And she said, "What are you talking about? You're all the same. You're all the same. Now go play." And the aunt said, "You're all the same. This is ridiculous, stupid. Go play." And I was like, well, it doesn't really answer the question, but it's the answer I've got, so I'm going to go with it. We're all the same. So I grew up with these conflicting beliefs. We're all the same, and everyone's out to get me. So I had to choose, right? There's a choice point on the table. I have to decide: are we all the same, or is everyone out to get me? Which one feels? Let me use my emotional compass. Which one feels better? Oh, everyone's out to get me. That sucks bad. So I'm going to release that one. That's out of alignment with my source energy. I'm going to choose to believe the ridiculous. I'm over here. We're all the same. Doesn't matter what we look like. That's what I was told. So that's what I'm going with. But so I learned that as I started taking off these coats of fear and challenging the things that were taught to me by people that I loved, I started to feel different. And as that happened, my body started to feel different. Part of rearranging the alchemy of your body by moving into your expanded self. When I say expanded, not a different self. Remember, we're just releasing the original self version. Part of that is that the body begins to respond differently to this new energy of the removal of fears. So, should be said before you embark on this journey, that when the body responds to the new alchemy, it starts to behave differently. The first thing I lost in my ascension journey was coffee. Didn't see it coming. And you have to understand, it's a good thing we don't know this when we're going in, because had you told me 10 years ago, you're going to lose coffee, you're going to lose wine, and your body one day is not going to want meat, I would have absolutely checked out of the entire game, and I would have been happy to stay where I am. But I didn't know what I was doing, and that's truly a blessing. I say that to encourage you to move into the unknown, that it's different. A lot of things are going to happen that are unexpected, but it's going to be great, even when you lose some other things from your egoic life, like coffee one year. You see, I still have feelings about that, right? But I'm working myself through it, right? So I used to enjoy once a week having a glass of red wine. Half of my family was European. And so red wine is considered actually a healthy thing to do, to have with your dinner. Have a glass. And I used to like to enjoy to do that. And then one day I picked up a glass and my body was just couldn't, it didn't, and I didn't. So I never had red wine again. I do, however, once a year on New Year's Eve, allow myself a little thing. And a family friend of mine, Michael, some of you know him, will make me what's called a chocolate martini. Now you think, well, you can't even have red wine. Why are you trying to tackle the martini? I know what you're thinking, right? Because it doesn't make sense. But it does, because he makes it in a way that it only tastes like chocolate. So I don't really feel as though I'm having anything alcoholic. So once a year on New Year's Eve, while everyone is toasting, I have a chocolate martini. It's the thing. It doesn't mean I'm not ascending. I'm just admitting that I'm being vulnerable, right? So I'm fine with that. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, everyone has this idea that in order to be ascending, you have to be right. No, I understand, right? Suzanne. So the ascension journey looks different for all of us, is my point. And it's going to feel different for all of us. The point is that, and I'll go back just very quickly, because I don't know, can somebody be the timekeeper? Because I want to make. Okay, thank you. Need somebody who's paying attention. Okay, so please, give me a 5-minute warning. So one of the things I tackled again was people pleasing. And one of the craziest things I had to learn was that I thought that if I pleased people, then they would like me, and that they would approve of me, and then they would validate me, and that they would show me things that feel like love. So I became very good at that, because I learned as a child, as most of us did, that we were course corrected in our behaviors. We were told what was right and wrong, and we were told how to talk and act, and through the lens of our caregivers and our parents and our families, and later on our teachers. And slowly we all began to adapt who we were to the parameters that were set for us. We moved away from our authentic selves. There's no judgment again for this. Remember, we all signed up for it. So when I'm explaining the process, a lot of people go, oh, we don't want to fall into judgment for the process or the journey. We want to make sure we understand that this is a part of, the adventure. But it was a part of it, this separation from self, this assimilation of false and limiting beliefs. And so I had to go back and understand that I thought people pleasing was love. So I'm using one of the 3 core beliefs as an example to kind of guide you through what happens in the mind and body during the ascension journey. It's a large belief, though. It's erroneous. It's a fear-based trauma response that we assimilate because we think we have to earn love. We think we have to earn worthiness. We think we have to earn everything. Remember what my dad said? I'm going to have to work 4 times as hard. But I don't have to work 4 times as hard. What I have to do is come back to the center of love within me. And that's okay that he didn't know that. And so there are some of us here who are breaking generational traumas and generational lessons, and hopefully handing them out and putting ourselves in service to others so that they can maybe resonate with something and then be a part of that ascension in humanity as a race. Humanity as a race, moving forward, taking our entire race into a whole new level of existence. So once I learned that it's in fact fear-based and not love-based, I had to start reorienting my own alchemy. I had to tell myself that I do not choose fear, even though it might look like love, and that I have to change my brain. So I would reorient my thought, ingrain it, repeat it until I believed it. That was good. That seemed not too hard to do. And then came the day I had to put it in action. And that was a little different because my body is conditioned, remember, to respond to certain stimuli in a very unique way. So that if you're unhappy with me, my instinct is to want to ameliorate that situation and to appease you. Because in people pleasing, I took on the burden of your emotions and I took responsibility for them. But remember, our emotions come from within us, and all they are is a compass that tells us when to turn left and when to turn right. They're not good, they're not bad, they just are. So, but in the process of learning to be a people pleaser, I took on the responsibility for everyone else's emotions, which of course is a fool's errand because people change their mind like the wind. And then I became a candle blowing in the wind, trying to keep everybody happy, which is why that doesn't work and leads to disappointment and unhappiness. I encountered a moment where after I had reoriented my belief, the universe, of course, delivers a situation where I can put that into action because this is what I'm doing. I always smile when I do that because I always wish I did this, but and someone became displeased with me. Something that I did, something that I said, something that was unintentional. And I had a choice. And I utilized a technique that would give me space. The first time is always the hardest time. The first time you learn how to ride a bike, you fall and maybe you trip, you got some skins and everything. But as you ride the bike more and more, it becomes second nature and now you're really great at it. The first time, there's a lot of tripping. So I learned to give myself space when I'm confronted with a new test, and I do nothing. I do nothing to disempower the triggering response that makes me want to take responsibility for something that I cannot possibly be responsible for. So in order to deactivate the trigger, what is the trigger? The pathways in the brain that are sending the message to the body that that bad thing is happening again and we have to do something about it, which is just a pathway that can be reoriented and remapped. But in order to do that, I had to train my body not to respond and my mind the way it normally did. Yes. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm like, yes, okay, yeah, I asked for that. See, I asked for that and then I forgot. So that is the journey. Now, when I did that and I took a space so that I could not respond, I may not be able to respond in the way that I want to, but at least I can control the trigger and not allow it to control me anymore and control how I respond. By not responding, I created a space where I could figure out how to respond in the energy field of love. This is the journey. It's like riding a bike. Every time you take off a coat, you're learning to ride a different bike. And then you have to learn. And then you think you're done. And then here comes another bike. And that's why people get tired of shadow work. Because we think, okay, there's more in there. Oh, so I want to wrap this up by saying, I think everybody in the world only wants to be kind to each other. I think the world is full of abundance and the universe has an unlimited field of abundance for everyone in the world, regardless of what they want. I think many ridiculous things that I encourage you to also believe because they just feel better. And I wish only for all of you to feel better and to feel happy.